Imagine a car that never stops. Not for gas. Not for charging. Not even for maintenance. 10 years on the road, silently proving something the automotive world thought impossible. And yet, there it was. Maxwell Chikumbutso's self-powered vehicle, quietly rewriting the rules of mobility. While most automakers focus on marginal improvements, longer battery life, faster charging, autonomous driving, Maxwell asked a different question. What if a car didn't need energy infrastructure at all? What if, instead of depending on stations, grids, or fuel, a car could generate and sustain its own power indefinitely? The answer wasn't theoretical. It wasn't a prototype stuck in a lab. It was a machine that quietly completed a 10-year test without stopping, covering thousands of kilometers, across variable terrain, and through changing weather conditions. So how did he do it? It started with a simple principle: energy independence. Unlike conventional EVs or hybrid vehicles, Maxwell's car wasn't tethered to external sources. Every movement, every wheel rotation, every mechanical action was carefully engineered to feed power back into the system. Through a combination of magnetic resonance, regenerative circuitry, and cutting-edge energy storage, the vehicle created a closed-loop ecosystem that was effectively self-sustaining. But building the car was only half the challenge. Maxwell had to prove it worked. A decade-long nonstop test wasn't just about endurance, it was about credibility. Skeptics claimed it was impossible. The critics predicted failure within months. Journalists were skeptical, and engineers dismissed the concept as fantasy engineering. The test began quietly, without cameras, without fanfare, and without press releases. Sensors were embedded throughout the car, monitoring energy flow, system efficiency, and mechanical wear. Every failure point that conventional cars would have succumbed to was anticipated and reinforced. Every system that might degrade was designed to self-correct. Months turned into years. Data was collected in secret, tens of thousands of readings tracking power generation, energy loss, and system integrity. Early failures were minor, easily corrected, but the overarching goal remained the same: prove the car could sustain itself without ever stopping for external energy. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the impossible began to take shape. As years passed, the car didn't just survive, it thrived. Systems optimized themselves. Regenerative loops became more efficient. Even in extreme heat, cold, and rough terrain, the vehicle maintained constant motion. By year 5, internal simulations began predicting that the car could continue indefinitely. By year 7, Maxwell had verified that no external energy input would ever be required. And by year 10, the vehicle had completed its test in a way that stunned engineers worldwide. 10 years of continuous operation, entirely self-powered, with zero external fuel or electricity. The world had never seen anything like it. Critics were silenced, skeptics had no counter, and the automotive industry, the very heart of innovation and skepticism, had to face a terrifying question. If Maxwell's system worked, what did it mean for the future of energy, mobility, and transport itself? But the real revelation wasn't just the car's endurance. It was what Maxwell learned about energy, mechanics, and systems thinking during that decade, knowledge that had the potential to reshape entire industries, from trucking and logistics to urban transport and even aerospace. And just when the industry thought they could catch up, Maxwell unveiled the most shocking part of the secret test. Then came the moment that would leave even the most seasoned engineers speechless. Maxwell revealed that the car wasn't just self-powered. It had developed a system of energy feedback loops capable of learning and optimizing itself over time. Every mile it traveled, every vibration it absorbed, every gear it turned contributed to a growing internal intelligence. The vehicle wasn't just surviving, it was evolving. Sensors measured wear and tear in real time, adjusting motor outputs to minimize friction and energy loss. Regenerative systems harvested power from braking, wheel rotation, and even air turbulence around the car. The onboard AI learned which routes conserved energy, which driving patterns maximized efficiency, and how to adapt to changing weather conditions without external input. By the end of the decade, the car had become more efficient than it was on day one. Journalists and researchers who had finally been allowed to see the test data couldn't believe their eyes. Graphs showed energy levels remaining constant even during periods of heavy load. Mechanical components showed negligible degradation compared to traditional vehicles. And yet, there were no hidden generators, no external charging, only the pure, self-sustaining system Maxwell had designed. But the most shocking revelation wasn't the car's efficiency. It was its implications. If one vehicle could maintain energy independence for 10 years, the possibilities for transportation, logistics, and even rural electrification were staggering. Trucks that never refueled, buses that powered themselves in remote regions, and mobile energy hubs for disaster zones suddenly became plausible. Maxwell smiled as he looked at the journalists, knowing the world was just beginning to understand what had happened. The decade-long test wasn't just about proving a concept. It was about proving that a paradigm shift was possible, a world where vehicles didn't rely on finite fuels, where energy scarcity could be challenged, and where innovation wasn't dictated by corporations or governments. And just as questions about scalability and real-world application began to emerge, Maxwell revealed the final secret of the test. The final secret was something nobody expected. Maxwell revealed that the car wasn't just self-powered, it was designed as a modular energy system. Every component, from the motor to the regenerative circuitry, could be replicated and scaled to power larger vehicles, fleets, or even small communities. In essence, this single self-sustaining car was a blueprint for an entirely new energy ecosystem. He demonstrated how multiple units could be networked, sharing energy intelligence and balancing loads dynamically. Trucks, buses, and even small drones could tap into the same system, forming a distributed, self-sustaining transportation grid. Remote villages could run their generators and irrigation systems using the same technology, without ever connecting to national grids. Engineers began running simulations. The results were staggering. A single city's public transport network could operate entirely without fuel. Humanitarian convoys in disaster zones could move without diesel trucks. And rural regions that had never seen reliable electricity could now have autonomous power nodes, all derived from the same technology Maxwell had perfected in his decade-long test. Investors, governments, and even Elon Musk himself began asking the same question. If this worked for one car, how quickly could it change the world? Maxwell remained calm. He had no intention of selling the system immediately. His focus was proving that self-sufficiency and sustainability were not only possible but scalable. And as the world tried to grasp the implications, Maxwell hinted at the next step: integrating wireless energy transfer, AI-driven fleet coordination, and hybrid microgrids, a move that could reshape transportation, energy, and industry globally. Then Maxwell unveiled the most jaw-dropping part. The system was completely wireless. No charging stations. No fuel lines. No physical connectors. Energy could be transmitted through resonant magnetic fields, allowing vehicles to power each other in motion, creating a self-sustaining convoy. Trucks could follow a lead vehicle and never stop. Buses could shuttle passengers across cities indefinitely, and fleets in remote areas could operate entirely independent of conventional energy infrastructure. Simulation models showed that just a handful of these vehicles could create autonomous transport networks capable of moving goods and people without traditional fuel, a literal energy grid on wheels. Rural towns in Africa, previously cut off by poor roads and unreliable diesel supply, could suddenly maintain trade, healthcare deliveries, and agricultural logistics without waiting for external aid. Even global automotive giants were forced to acknowledge the scale of disruption. Analysts projected that if Maxwell's system were deployed across multiple continents, the entire fuel and logistics market could face collapse, an industry worth trillions of dollars suddenly challenged by a single decade-long experiment. Meanwhile, engineers and young innovators across Africa were already adapting the system. Open-source designs allowed communities to replicate the self-powered modules for irrigation, off-grid electricity, and even micro-transport solutions in cities. The car had become more than a vehicle. It was a platform for a continent-wide technological leap. And then came the final, almost unbelievable twist. Maxwell revealed that the car's AI wasn't just managing energy, it was learning how to optimize global systems. weather patterns, traffic flow, crop logistics, and energy demand, all integrated into a living, adaptive network. The implications weren't just automotive, they were planetary. At this point, the world realized something profound. Maxwell's secret test wasn't just about proving a car could run 10 years without fuel. It was about showing that self-sustaining technology, open-source innovation, and African ingenuity could redefine the rules of modern civilization. As news of Maxwell's breakthrough spread, the world began to react in real time. Media outlets ran headlines calling it the vehicle that could change civilization, while investors scrambled to understand the technology they had previously dismissed. Governments issued urgent inquiries, some out of curiosity, others out of fear, for if Africa could build self-powered, autonomous transport networks, the balance of global energy dependence could shift dramatically. In cities across the continent, young engineers, students, and innovators began replicating Maxwell's system. Workshops, garages, and university labs became hubs of experimentation. They weren't just copying the car, they were expanding its principles into buses, tractors, trucks, and even drones. The invention was evolving faster than anyone could predict. Meanwhile, global corporations convened emergency meetings. Executives discussed Maxwell risk scenarios in hushed tones. They realized that the self-powered, wireless, AI-driven system could render traditional energy grids and fossil fuel logistics obsolete. Analysts began predicting a future where countries that once relied on importing energy could achieve full independence, and Africa would lead the charge. Yet despite the frenzy, Maxwell remained almost invisible. He rarely gave interviews, instead focusing on mentoring local innovators, releasing open-source designs, and quietly overseeing the expansion of the network. He understood something most of the world didn't. Technology, without empowerment, is useless. By giving communities the tools, he ensured the revolution was decentralized and unstoppable. Then came the global demonstration that would cement the system's legendary status. Maxwell arranged a convoy of self-powered vehicles spanning multiple countries. Trucks, buses, and cars travel hundreds of kilometers across varying terrain, with no fuel stops, no charging stations, and no human intervention required for energy management. Satellites tracked the convoy in real time. Analysts in boardrooms across the globe watched in disbelief as the vehicles maintained perfect coordination, energy balance, and route optimization entirely autonomously. By the end of the demonstration, the message was undeniable. Maxwell's invention wasn't just a car. It was a blueprint for a new era, one where mobility, energy, and innovation could exist independent of old systems, centralized control, or external resources. And as governments, corporations, and communities scrambled to understand the implications, one question loomed large. If this was possible in transport, what other industries could Maxwell's principles revolutionize next? The demonstration ended, but the story was only beginning. Maxwell's self-powered system had done more than prove a car could run 10 years without fuel. It had shown the world that innovation knows no boundaries and that African ingenuity could lead a technological revolution. From rural villages to sprawling cities, communities began adopting, adapting, and expanding the technology. Energy grids, transportation networks, and even agricultural systems were reimagined. Governments and corporations realized they were no longer the gatekeepers of progress. The future had been decentralized, democratized, and powered by those who dared to think differently. And in the midst of it all, Maxwell quietly continued his work, mentoring young engineers, refining autonomous energy systems, and proving a simple truth. True innovation isn't measured by profit or headlines. It's measured by the lives it transforms and the possibilities it unlocks. The era of dependence was over. A new age of self-powered technology had begun, and it started in Africa.